Oh, good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining me today for our latest Railbookers webinar, which is going to be featuring some of our top holidays by Sleeper Train. I do hope you're all well. My name is Sam, and I'll be trying to provide you with a little bit of inspiration, hopefully, for your next trip away. So just before we begin, I thought it'd be nice just to let you know of a little offer that we have running right now. We're offering up to £500 in free upgrades to any of our customers booking any of our holidays on our website. So all the holidays that feature today will be privy to up to £500 worth of free upgrades. We realise that a lot of people haven't been able to travel, of course, over the last 18 months. So for that first trip away, we're trying to make it extra special for you, and that could be put towards any element of the trip. So the accommodation, the activities, extra nights, upgrading your hotel rooms, or the class on board the train. So just thought start by mentioning that. Just before we jump into the holidays, we're going to have a little look at Railbookers and the company itself. If you have been on these webinars before, you may have seen some of this, so please do indulge me. Have a cup of tea. We'll be about 5 minutes before we hit the holidays, but a little look at Railbookers. So a couple of things that we offer our customers. First of all, one really important thing to mention is that we book travel from today all the way through to 2 years out, so all the way out to 2023. So as soon as travel opens up, if you do wish to get away ASAP, if a country or destination gets given the green light and you want to travel, then we can start booking those holidays for you imminently. If you're looking to perhaps plan that longer trip, maybe for a special occasion into 2022 or even 2023, we can start to plan that for you now, like I say, up to 2 years in advance. And we do also offer maximum flexibility on all of our holidays. So what we will be showing you today is really just an idea of what's possible. Some of our favorite trips, the way that we feel like these holidays fit best. But if you do want to mix it up, change these holidays at all, we can do. Really, it's entirely up to you. We can tailor make our trips. And as it says there, any destination on any date for any length of time. So if the train goes there, so do we. At the end of the day, it's your holiday. You tell us what you want to do and we'll piece it together for you. We can be as flexible as you wish. We also, of course, try and take the complexity out of it. It can be quite daunting trying to book rail holidays across Europe. So we try and make it as stress-free as possible for you. And just a reminder that we do have a huge selection of rail holidays on the website. So if you don't see something that's perfect for you today, we have hundreds and hundreds of options on the Railbookers and Amtrak websites. We also have our digital brochures. We've got our Railbookers Worldwide brochure, which has our holidays globally, but we also have a few new brochures for this year, our UK and Ireland independent rail holidays. We understand, of course, not too many people traveling abroad, so we've put together a few more closer to home trips, and we have our luxury brochure as well, so featuring trains such as the Venice and Orient Express, the Golden Eagle, the Blue Train in South Africa, Eastern and Oriental Express. So if you're looking for something extra special, perhaps take a look at our luxury brochure. Also, just to mention that we're currently still running our maximum flexibility policy, which means that any reservations, holidays booked between now and the 30th of September can be changed up to 5 days before departure with no cancellation fees. We're still living, we know, in a bit of uncertainty. We're not sure if it's going to be a green light, an amber light, what the quarantine measures are going to be. So if you did book a holiday now, but any time up to 5 days before you wish to change that or move the dates, then you can currently do that with our maximum flexibility policy up to 5 days before departure without incurring any additional fees. Just gives you that extra peace of mind and freedom if you're looking to plan a holiday right now. We do offer 24-hour support from global offices, so we don't just have offices in the UK, we have them around the world, 2 in the US, 1 in Canada and 1 in Australia. Really, what that means is it doesn't matter where you are or what time of day it is. When you're traveling, you should always be able to get through to someone in our dedicated guest relations team if you need any assistance at all. And of course, we are partnered with all the main rail operators across Europe, which means that we can make specific requests for you if you wish, particular side of the train if you want an upper deck. It's also what allows us to book up to 2 years out. A lot of these rail operators to the public, you can only book 3 months in advance. So if you were looking to plan for 2022, it'd be very difficult. We're able to get these prices and this availability up to 2 years in advance because of the relationship we have with our partners. And finally, just to take a look at, it's very pertinent, of course, and important to look at how rail operators are trying to maintain a safe environment. So, of course, it is still facial coverings in stations and on board the trains for passengers and staff. They did initially stop the sale of food and drink on board trains, although they have started to reintroduce that now, especially on board the sleeper trains that we're going to look at today. Obviously, for making it as hygienic as possible. Our travel consultants can give you up-to-date information on that, but they did originally stop that just for hygiene purposes. Of course, they've changed a lot of the seating configuration to allow for more social distancing. They've reduced the capacity on some of the services, although we do expect as we move into the summer and the autumn for that capacity to be getting close to 100% again. Of course, increased cleaning and sanitation and contactless ticket control on for your train tickets these days. I mean, I think we're all used to contactless now, especially when it comes to paying for things. That'll be the same for a lot of travel going forward. I'm sure many of you have got the apps for the airlines. That will be the same for rail tickets as well. So a lot of it will come through on email and on apps. So it will be paperless going forward. Okay, so let's crack on with the holidays. That's why we're all here after all. And we'll start by looking at a trip that's a bit closer to home, which is our grand tour of Scotland. So this is a 9-night, 10-day trip, starts in London and begins with the Caledonian Sleeper train from London all the way through to Inverness. A really, really nice way to start the holiday. The Caledonian Sleeper service is a fantastic service, especially for relaxation and comfort. It's a awful long way, or it can be, to travel up to the Scottish Highlands, especially if you're coming from down south. So to be able to cover that distance by sleeper train is a really nice way to do it. And some of the scenery that you'll be privy to as you come into Inverness in the Scottish Highlands that first morning really is fantastic. So that's a lovely way to start the trip, and we'll take a look at what it's like on board the Caledonian Sleeper in just a moment. But after that trip on board the Caledonian Sleeper, you're going to get 8 nights in Scotland. So 2 nights in Inverness, including a day trip out to the Isle of Skye. You'll also spend 2 nights in Glasgow with a day trip out to Loch Lomond and Stirling Castle. Then we'll take you up to the Fort William area, where you'll get a day trip on the iconic Jacobite steam train. And then it's down to Edinburgh for a couple of nights, where you'll get access to Edinburgh Castle and 2 days in the capital. So we do really try and give you as much opportunity to see the sites, to see the surrounding areas, give you skip the line tickets, tours and activities included, so you make the most of your time on this trip to Scotland. And this has been our most popular holiday of 2021. For 2022, believe it or not, it's actually the Orient Express. There's a lot of people looking to have a luxurious first trip away next year, but this year the Grand Tour of Scotland has been our most popular holiday, and I think you can see why. It's a real lovely way to explore this part of the country. And as I mentioned, it starts with the trip on the Caledonian Sleeper train out of London Euston, and there's a couple of options on board the Caledonian Sleeper for you. There's 3 classes of accommodation on board. You've got the classic room, the club room, and the Caledonian double room. So here's a picture of the classic room. So you have bunks set up when you arrive. You've got your wash basin and your sink there, complimentary toiletries, access to the lounge car as well. But in my humble opinion, if it was me traveling on this train, I'd always try and upgrade to the club room if I could. The club room is the same setup as the classic room that you see here. It does have the bunks, but it does give you an ensuite toilet and shower as well. We don't have a picture of the club room here. It's actually quite difficult to get a picture of the room and the toilet and shower in one, which is why we've just got the classic room here. But it's only about £15 to upgrade to the club room. So as I say, it's still the bunks, but you get an ensuite toilet and shower in your cabin, and you also get breakfast delivered to your room as well, which you don't get in the classic. There are showers on board if you're in the classic room, which you can use and share with your fellow passengers. But if you do want that ensuite toilet and shower, then I would definitely recommend upgrading to the club room. If you want the most luxurious way to travel and to start your trip on board the Caledonian Sleeper, then they do have a few Caledonian double rooms, as I mentioned. So the facilities are exactly the same as the club room. So you get your ensuite shower, you get your breakfast into the room, but you do get the luxury of a double bed. It's one of the few sleeper trains in Europe actually that includes a double bed, or the option of a double bed in one of its sleeper cabins. There are only a few of these on board. They do sell out quite quickly. So if you are looking to take a trip up to Scotland and you'd like to start it on the Caledonian Sleeper with access to a Caledonian double, then you do have to book these quite early. But this is the most luxurious and comfortable way to travel. It also gives you access to the lounge areas at the stations as well in Euston. So if you're looking for a bit of luxury, the most relaxing way to travel, the Caledonian Sleeper and the Caledonian Double. But to be honest, the classic and club rooms are very relaxing, and as I say, the service on board and the standard of the train is first class. Also have a club car as well. So if you upgrade to the club room, you get access to the club car. Of course, if you're in the double, you get that as well. So if you want a bit of space outside your cabin, they've got some comfortable little benches to sit out there and chairs, and they've got these nice windows as well that you can appreciate the landscape, as I say, especially that first morning as you arrive into the Scottish Highlands and travel into Inverness. You can have your breakfast out here as well and watch the countryside roll by. There is a dining car as well, priority access to the dining car if you're in the club room or the double cabin, and the food is freshly prepared on board. We're not used to particularly great food on board our trains in the UK, but on the Caledonian Sleeper train it's a different experience altogether. So some freshly prepared Scottish salmon, as you can see there, some looks like risotto and vegetables. They serve beers, wines, bubbly on board, so you can have a really nice evening meal as well before you head back to your cabin for a good night's sleep. So really lovely way to start this trip before heading into Inverness. Lovely picture there of Inverness and the surrounding area. You can just imagine what it will look like as you arrive by sleeper. So you get 2 nights in Inverness. And as I mentioned, we do offer a fantastic day trip out to Eilean Castle and the Isle of Skye. This is actually our most popular day trip of all our UK holidays. You travel through some dramatic Highland landscapes before visiting Eilean Castle itself, which you can see there. It's famous for being the most photographed castle in Scotland. And then with an expert guide, you'll head over to the Isle of Skye itself. You'll get to stop off for a great photo opportunity of the Red Cullen Mountains. You'll visit the coastal town of Portree, have some free time for lunch, visit a few more castles before heading back to Inverness. So you've got a full day tour out to the Isle of Skye, and you'll see Eilean Castle on your way. After Inverness, you've got Glasgow, Loch Lomond, Stirling Castle, and then off to Fort William, where you'll get to board the Jacobite steam train, and you'll have a return trip from Fort William to Mallaig and back. Mallaig, a lovely little fishing village. You'll get to spend a couple of hours there, but really this day is all about the Jacobite steam train, one of the most scenic journeys in the whole of Europe. I think it's easy to forget just what's on our doorstep. We talk about Switzerland and their railways, the Bonino Express, the Glacier Express, which we'll look at a bit later. But up in Scotland, they've got the Jacobite steam train, which is just as glorious as all of them. The Glenfinnan Viaduct, you can see there, is just as magnificent as the Landwasser Viaduct that you would travel on the Bonino Express. So you get a great day out on the Jacobite steam train included in this holiday as well. And travel up to Scotland wouldn't really feel right without a whiskey experience. So we do include a Scotch whiskey experience for you as well. Learn about Scotch from some of the true masters up in Scotland. I think they have almost 4,000 bottles. If you're a whiskey connoisseur, you can take the single malts, the blended whiskies. They also give you a lovely souvenir crystal whiskey tasting glass when you've finished. But just to mention, of course, if you're not into your whiskey if it isn't something you wish to do. This does come as part of the trip, but we could replace it with any other tours that we have up in Scotland and around the Edinburgh area. So as I mentioned before, these are just suggestions that are included in our holidays, but everything is flexible. So if you did wish to change that up and see what else we had to offer in the area, then we could replace that with any of our other tours, not a problem at all. So that's our first holiday today. It's the Caledonian Sleeper train up to Scotland with 8 nights in Scotland, Inverness, Glasgow, Fort William and Edinburgh. So now we're going to move over to Italy and take a look at our Sicily by train holiday. So this one starts out of London, the Eurostar to Paris, and then the high-speed TGV over to Milan. One full day in Milan. You'll arrive into Milan in the evening, but then you'll get a full day in Milan before you pick up the sleeper train from Milan all the way down to Taormina. So sleeper train will run down to the end of the mainland there, the boot of Italy, and then it'll actually board a ferry. Fantastic experience. The train itself goes onto a ferry and you travel across the Straits of Messina to Taormina. It's one of the few remaining ferry trains, I should say, in the world. A real fantastic experience and a lovely way to enter Sicily. And then you'll have 6 nights in Sicily, in Taormina, Catania and Palermo. We offer a day trip in Taormina to visit the Greek and Roman temples. You get an incredible tour of Mount Etna in Catania as well, and then we offer a tour in Palermo, the capital there. After your 6 nights in Sicily, you have the option of flying back to London, but of course, if you wish to take the train back, we can do a round trip by rail for you. So you could potentially take the train back up to Naples, and then the overnight train to Naples, and then the day services back up through Italy, perhaps stopping in Venice, Florence, Rome if you wish, and then the TGV back to Paris and London. So that gives you an idea of the trip. This is an 8-night, 9-day holiday. As I say, starts with that first night in Milan, and you'll get a full day to explore Milan itself before boarding the overnight train from Milan down to Taormina. So the overnight sleeper train from Milan down to Taormina offers 1, 2 and 3 bed sleeper compartments. So, again, the privacy of your own sleeping compartment. They don't have shower facilities in any of the cabins, just to make you aware. They do just have the one standard of cabin on these sleeper trains. So you get your bunks by night, and then on the right there you can see you've got a 3-seat sofa by day. Just to mention, there isn't a restaurant car on board, so we do highly recommend having dinner in Milan before you depart, and taking perhaps some snacks on board with you, maybe a bottle of wine. There is complimentary tea, coffee, juice in the morning, but they'll be served to you in your car, but it's not there's no substantial breakfast. You'll have breakfast when you get to Taormina, and there's no restaurant car for dinner. But the views that you'll get out of the windows, the travel on the ferry as you enter Taormina, really is it's a gorgeous way to make the trip into Sicily. So your first stop will be Taormina. As I say, you'll wake up in your cabin to views of the Italian coastline. Fantastic, beautiful views of the Italian coastline. The train line often runs just a few feet from the water. And as I mentioned, when it comes to the end of the main line, that's where you'll be ferried across the Straits of Messina. When you're on the ferry, you can disembark the train, you can stretch your legs, get a taste of the fresh Mediterranean air before arriving in Messina, and then the train will disembark the ferry and it will carry on to Taormina itself. So you'll have 2 nights in Taormina. You get a tour to the ancient theatre there, which we've got a picture of here, the Teatro Antico de Taormina. So we give you a half-day guided tour of the surrounding area, including a trip to the theatre here. It's also got a lovely little beach as well if you want to relax in the evenings, or on your second day if you want to rest, then you've got some fantastic beaches to enjoy in Taormina. And then it's off to Catania for 2 nights. And I think the real highlight of the stay in Catania is the journey to Mount Etna. It's It's a 4x4 Jeep tour, believe it or not, to Mount Etna. One of the only ways to get there. We've been running this tour now for maybe 4 or 5 years. It's been a massive hit with all our customers that have been to this area of Italy, down into Sicily. You get to head to the peak of, as I'm sure many of you know, one of Europe's largest active volcanoes, stopping off along the way to take photos. You'll cross the lava fields, learn about the history of the volcano itself, its unique flora and fauna. So it's a fantastic half-day trip, and then back to Catania. And again, you know, as you can imagine in this area, some fantastic beaches in Catania as well if you wanted to relax again that evening. And then it's off to Palermo, the capital of Sicily, a very historic city, of course, has some of the best preserved examples of Byzantine architecture in the world. We give you a hop-on, hop-off sightseeing pass that allows you to explore the city at your leisure. Very famous for its ancient buildings, the Royal Palace, the Palatine Chapel, and of course, Sicily, famed for its culinary delights. And I suppose Palermo is the mecca of culinary delights for the Sicilian area. So you're going to have 2 evenings where you can go out and sample some of the food in the city's many amazing restaurants. So that's our Sicilian trip. So that's the Eurostar to Paris, Paris to Milan, a night in Milan, overnight from Milan all the way through to Sicily, and then 6 nights in Sicily and Taormina, Catania and Palermo before traveling back to the UK. Okay, so moving on to our 3rd holiday, which is our Venice and Vienna, excuse me, via the Alps. Again, this starts with the Eurostar out of London down to Paris. And then just to mention in Paris, that when traveling by Eurostar, you'll arrive into Paris Gare du Nord. And then you'll have to make a trip across to Paris Gare de Lyon to pick up the TGV. And now we do offer you the metro tickets. It's just 2 stops on board the metro. Line D will give you the instructions to get there. Or you can take a taxi, or we can include a private transfer across Paris for you. It's completely up to you. But you will need to change stations in Paris. And then it's that high-speed TGV down to Lausanne. 1 night in Lausanne, and then you get an absolutely stunning journey through the Swiss Alps along what's known as the Simplon Pass between Lausanne and Milan before continuing through to Venice. That's really where the holiday begins. I think you get that nice evening in Lausanne, but then that first morning, you leave about 8 o'clock in the morning. You might get to see the sunrise over the Swiss Alps, and you travel through the Simplon Pass. It's a real spectacular day's train travel. Into Venice, 2 nights in Venice, high-speed journey up to Vienna, 2 nights in Vienna, and then a sleeper train from Vienna to Cologne, or on certain days of the week, the train goes all the way through to Brussels. So that's where your sleeper train's going to be, from Vienna through to Cologne or through to Brussels. And then it's the Eurostar back to London. So as I mentioned, you're going to have that stunning trip from Lausanne through to Milan and then into Venice. And then you're going to arrive into Venice by train. Now, for me, there's probably no more spectacular way to arrive into Venice than by train. There's probably no better city to arrive into by train for me than Venice. You arrive into the Santa Lucia station, get off the train, walk out those station doors, down those steps, and you've got the Grand Canal in front of you with the buildings seemingly floating, on top of the Grand Canal. Those of you that have been to Venice will know what I mean. Those that haven't, I would highly advise arriving into Venice by train. I don't think you get the same kind of view afforded to you if you fly in. You don't get that jaw-dropping wow factor when you walk out and you see the Grand Canal in all its glory for the first time. So a real, stunning moment, especially after that fantastic trip through the Simplon Pass and the Swiss Alps. And as I mentioned, you get 2 nights in Venice. At this point, just got to mention some of the hotels. So just a reminder, as I said at the start, that everything we do is completely flexible. So you have the option of 3-star, 4-star, 5-star hotels, completely up to you. You can mix and match. If, let's say, in Lausanne and Vienna, you were looking for just 3-star hotels, but you wanted to push the boat out, shall we say, in Venice and upgrade to maybe a 5-star hotel, maybe you had a special occasion to celebrate in Venice, then you can do. This is one of our hotels in Venice that we recommend. It's the 5-star Metropole Hotel. Again, you could put any of your the money towards your upgrades that we're offering to 5-star hotels if you wish. The Metropole Hotel here is a 5-star hotel. It's just a short stroll from St. Mark's Square. It's right on the lagoon. We offer rooms with the lagoon view. As you can see here, you can look across to St. Mark's Square. So in all the cities that we feature in any of our holidays, we'll have a range of hotels between 3, 4, and 5 star. We'll ask you exactly what you're looking for from a hotel, and we'll try and match one of the hotels that we have as partnered to your likings. But in Venice, one of our favorites is the Metropole, and really it's because of that fantastic view and the location as well, just a short stroll from St. Mark's Square. After your time in Venice, it's over to Vienna. Lovely high-speed train over to Vienna. You sit back, relax, enjoy the spectacular mountain landscape as you speed through Austria to arrive into Vienna. So we offer you a city pass in Vienna. Vienna is quite vast. It's nice to have the city pass to be able to get around and see the attractions at your own pace. You've got St. Stephen's Cathedral, of course, the Spanish riding school, the fantastic, famous Ferris wheel as well, made famous, I think, by The Third Man, the fantastic Orson Welles film. So you've got plenty of things to see and do. If art's what you're after, you've got the museum quarter as well. You'll find a cluster of classical and contemporary exhibition spaces. And of course, Vienna, very popular for its coffee culture. So do make sure, if you're into your coffee, to grab a few cups of delicious Viennese coffee while you're there. So the sleeper train on this trip is that overnight journey from Vienna to Cologne, or as I say, on a couple of days through to Brussels. Now, the sleeper train that runs between Cologne and Vienna is fantastic. It's called the Night Jet, really modern, really spacious, really great level of service, nice and comfortable. Again, you have the 1, 2, or 3 bed private rooms, so singles, doubles, or triples. Difference with this particular sleeper train is that it does offer, it differs to the train we saw going down to Sicily, in that it does offer standard and deluxe rooms. So you do have the option of upgrading to a deluxe room here, where you have a shower and toilet included in your cabin as well. And again, I would highly recommend this. It's only around £15 to £20 per person to upgrade to the deluxe rooms. I think there are only 3 on board. So again, much like the Caledonian double that we saw earlier, if you are looking to book a sleeper train between Cologne and Vienna, or vice versa, and you're looking for that toilet and shower, they do book out quickly. So it's highly advisable to get in early to book those. But for just a small additional cost, I would highly recommend upgrading to the deluxe. Both have the bunks, as you can see there. Standard and deluxe cabins, they have a continental breakfast served to you each morning. So like I say, really, really nice way to travel, really comfortable, really spacious, really, really nice level of service. Just to mention as well, if you are just in the standard cabins, if you can't manage to get a deluxe room, then there are showers at the end of the corridor for standard sleeper passengers as well. Of course, you could take it, just to mention, you could take it in reverse. We do have lots of holidays that start with this sleeper train. So the Eurostar out to Brussels and then over to Vienna, and then you can go on to Budapest or travel to Prague and Berlin. So we do a lot of trips that start with the sleeper train. If you prefer to do it that way, absolutely no problem at all. You can do the holidays in reverse and start with the sleeper train out to Vienna. Okay, so we're going to move on now to perhaps the most luxurious trip that we offer across Europe, which is the Venice Simplon Orient Express to Venice with the Glacier Express and Bonino Express. So this starts with 2 days of luxury on board the Venice Simplon Orient Express, departs from London, Victoria, and then, as I say, 2 days of kind of romance and opulence as you travel through France and then the Austrian Alps into Italy. I think it'd be remiss of me not to mention the scenery, because the Orient Express, of course, known for its glamour and the train itself, but there's also some fantastic, wonderful scenery en route through to Italy. I think it's often forgotten how beautiful the journey itself is. Everyone talks about the train, but you do get this fantastic scenery as you travel through the Alberg Pass, the Brenner Pass, as well, down to Venice via the Austrian Alps. We'll have a look at what life's like on board the Orient Express in just a moment. So it's 3 nights, 2 full days in Venice, and then you travel through Italy up to the very small little town of Tirano, which is right on the border of Italy and Switzerland, where you pick up the first of the 2 scenic trains that will be traveling on in Switzerland. So you'll travel on the Bonino Express, first of all, between Tirano and St. Moritz. You'll have 2 nights in St. Moritz, and then you'll travel the full length of the Glacier Express line from St. Moritz all the way down to Zermatt. You'll have 2 nights in Zermatt, home to the Matterhorn, and we give you a trip on the Gornergrat Railway, which is the best way to, or that gives you the best vantage point to see the Matterhorn mountain. And then it's back to Zurich and back to London, either by flight or train via Paris and the Eurostar to London. So the Venice Simplon and Orient Express. This is how your cabin will look when you arrive. Very opulent, very classical. Not that big, as you'll see. It is quite small, but really that's because they've tried to keep it as traditional and classical as they can do. It really harks back to the days of the original Venice Simplon and Orient Express. Took that journey between Paris and Istanbul back in the 20s and 30s. So, they've tried to keep the cabins as similar to those originals as they can. Obviously, they've been renovated. So yeah, they've got the opulence, the romance, but they are, as I say, they are quite small. I do have to mention as well that on the Orient Express, just so everyone's aware, there are no showers on board. You do have toilets, of course, but again, it's just the way that they're designed. But this is how it'll look when you arrive. You'll get a welcome drink, and you'll be able to spend the first couple of hours getting used to your surroundings and watching the world go by on board. Also, just to mention, if you did want to, I suppose, travel or I suppose find the ultimate way to travel on the world's most famous train, I suppose is how I could put it. They do have what's called the Grande Suite. It's really like a palace on wheels. It's the only way to get a double bed on board. The Grande Suite does come with a shower. There are only a couple on board. I do like to just mention it on these webinars so that people know that it exists. It does, pretty much double the cost of the holiday, but it is there for you. If you're looking to travel, as I say, an absolute luxury, then they do have the Grande Suite option. If you do want to know exactly how much it costs, do just give us a call. It does differ depending on the departure dates and what time of year you're traveling. But if you're looking for an idea of the cost of the Grande Suite, you won't be able to find that on our website, as I say, because it does change. But do just give us a call, and one of our consultants will be able to give you an updated price for the Grande Suite option. So after you spent some time in your cabin, then you're going to head off for dinner that evening. And before you head off for dinner, you can spend some time relaxing in the lounge car. Really nice area to perhaps socialize, meet your fellow travelers. I always think a lot of the fun of traveling is meeting those people and learning about their experiences who are doing the same kind of trip as you. So you can spend a bit of time in the lounge car, and then you'll be off into the dining car and you'll have a 5-course meal that evening on board. The dress code for the evening meals will be dinner jacket. A lot of the men in tuxedos, of course, and evening dress for the ladies. It is a really special kind of private, romantic dinner. Your own table, of course, 5-course meal, as I mentioned, bottle of wine between you. So you get a lovely meal. All the food, as you can imagine, is freshly prepared on board. Michelin star food of the highest quality. So you get a lovely meal on board that first evening. And then afterwards, you can relax in the bar car if you wish. The bar car is open all afternoon, and then all night. It's actually open until the last person decides to retire back to their cabin, so often to the small hours of the morning. It has a pianist for the early evening as well to accompany you. So a nice place to relax after dinner for a few drinks before heading back to the cabin. And when you head back to the cabin, your beds will be made. So you can see the beds here are bunks. The view here you've got is from an interconnecting cabin. They do have the option of booking what's called a cabin suite. And so this is 2 interconnecting cabins. So if you do want a bit of extra space, if there's 2 of you traveling and you don't want a top bunk, you can book an interconnecting cabin. So you've got 2 lower berth bunks, and they charge 50% for the second cabin. So you get a 50% reduction for the second cabin if you wanted to book what they call a cabin suite, which essentially is 2 interconnecting cabins. The price is somewhere in between the cabin and the Grande Suite. So if you didn't want to splash out fully on the Grande Suite, but you wanted a bit of extra space and some 2 lower berth beds, then you can book 2 cabins interconnecting, just to give you an idea. So I did mention a couple of the scenic journeys in Switzerland. You've got the Bonino Express, and you're also going to take the full length of the Glacier Express as well. An extraordinary panoramic train. extraordinary views and incredible journey through the Swiss Alps. It's around about 6.5 hours on board. And what they've introduced over the last few years is an upgrade to a cabin called Excellence Class, which really is the most luxurious way that you can travel. It fits very well if you're taking the Orient Express. You know, it keeps that luxury up throughout the holiday. You've got incredible, relaxing, comfortable, large seats, these massive panoramic windows. You've got a 5-course lunch served to you with accompanying wines. You also have your own personal concierge for the journey, talk to you about the history of the area, the food, the culture, the wildlife. They've got lots of nice little exciting anecdotes to talk to you. You've also got your own private bar for those in Excellence Class as well. I think there's only 14, maybe 16 seats in Excellence Class, so it is quite a private experience. There are, of course, standard and first class on the Glacier Express, which also have the panoramic windows and are very, very comfortable and relaxing. But if you're looking for the top level on board the Glacier Express, really, I suppose, to pair with the Orient Express, then the Excellence Class is the way to go. Okay, so moving to our final holiday today, we're going to be traveling across the pond, and we're going to look at the Great American Majestic landscapes. So this is a 11-night, 12-day holiday. You've got 3 nights on board the Amtrak services and 8 nights across 4 of the US's most famous cities, so New York, Chicago, Denver, and San Francisco. We also include a sightseeing tour of the Rocky Mountain National Park when you're in Denver, and a sightseeing tour of the wine regions of Napa and Sonoma when you're in San Francisco. This is probably our most bestseller, I would say, in America, the American landscapes. So it begins in New York for 2 nights, and then you're going to travel overnight to Chicago, one of my favorite cities in the world, I do have to admit. We include a hop-on, hop-off sightseeing tour in Chicago. It takes you to all the famous landmarks, Navy Pier, Millennium Park, which is an architectural wonder in itself, Magnificent Mile. You can also travel to the Sky Deck to get some, 360-degree views of the city. One of my personal recommendations would be to take the architectural river cruise if you're ever in Chicago. It's a couple of hours journey up and down the river, telling you about the history of the city through its architecture. You can see some of the buildings there, the Art Deco buildings. It really is a fantastic way to learn about Chicago, especially if you're into history and you're into architecture. I think a few years back it was actually ranked the #1 sightseeing tour in the whole of the US. So I would highly recommend that if you're in Chicago. But really, for this particular trip, I think the highlights, not just the cities, it really is about the train journey and the California Zephyr, especially. Even I think some of the most experienced travelers across the US would probably tell you that the California Zephyr is the most beautiful train trip in all of North America. You get to absorb some of the most breathtaking scenery that America has to offer. The Rockies, the snow-capped Sierra Nevadas. You can't see the snow-capped Sierra Nevadas there, but you will get to see them on board the train. So, you're going to see these fantastic cities of the US, but experiencing the ever-changing landscapes by train is definitely the best way to do it, I think. And the California Zephyr really is the ultimate when it comes to train travel across America. When you're in Denver, you're going to have a trip out to the Rocky Mountain National Park, get to see some fantastic wildlife. You'll travel to the summit of the Continental Divide, about 10,000 feet above sea level. You'll visit the town of Winter Park and the towns of Great Lake as well. Some incredible scenery, as you can imagine, and just a great day of sightseeing all round. That's a full day tour of the Rocky Mountain National Park. And then it's over to San Francisco. You'll get a full day in San Francisco and also a full day touring 2 of the country's most famous wine growing regions of Napa and Sonoma. So you'll get to sip on some delicious local wine whilst taking in that gorgeous scenery of the surrounding wine country. So just to finish, we'll take a look at the accommodation on board Amtrak. So start starting with the coach accommodation. So you can book just coach accommodation on Amtrak, which really is just a reclining seat. Now, I wouldn't recommend that if you're taking a 10, 12-day holiday across the US, but if you're traveling around the US and you're not doing too many overnight journeys, then coach accommodation is absolutely fine. Like I say, you've got the reclining seats, they're very comfortable. But really, it's just for those day trips, or maybe if you're doing one overnight and you want to keep the cost down, then perhaps you could book the coach accommodation. But really, when you start to look at the overnight journeys, really the base level is the roomettes, I would suggest. So here's your roomette. They're cabins for two. You of course have the privacy of a locked door. You have two sofas that fold down by day that then fold up to bunks by night. No shower and toilets in the roomettes. They are quite cozy, but shower and toilets are just a few meters down the hallway. But as soon as you upgrade to a sleeper berth on board any of the Amtrak trains, all your meals are included as well. So sometimes the increased cost of upgrading from coach to roomette is offset by the fact that you get all your meals, breakfast, lunch, and dinner included on board the train, which you don't get if you're just in coach class. So roomette is the most popular option for travel on Amtrak. Take a quick look here at what it looks like when the beds are made up for the evening. So you can see, as I mentioned, it is quite cozy, but you've got your privacy of the locked door. If you do want a bit of extra space on board these Amtrak trains, then you can upgrade to the bedrooms. The bottom bunk is about a berth and a half, so slightly wider than you'd get in the roomette, and you've got the top bunk there as well. But you've got a bit more additional space. You've got a sofa in your bedroom, and you've also got a shower and toilet included in the room as well. And by day, it folds down to a couple of large chairs and sofas. And in the roomettes and the bedrooms, you've got those large windows as well, so you can admire the scenery as you travel. I would highly recommend spending time in the observation cars, though, when you're in traveling on Amtrak, and as much time as possible, to be honest. They really are great areas to relax, watch the world go by, perhaps with a book, a glass of wine. They're very peaceful, definitely the best place to admire the ever-changing landscapes with these large panoramic windows that you can see. And they've got those swivel chairs as well, so you can get both sides of the scenery and both windows. So a really nice area, but get there early because those seats can get taken up pretty quickly. So if you have breakfast, probably best thing to do is, if you want to get the best scenery, is head off to the observation car. And I mentioned that you get food on board. Just a picture here of the dining car. So again, a nice chance to meet and socialize with your fellow travelers. And the food on Amtrak's very, very good, especially for the long distance journeys. All freshly prepared again on board. You'll get a 3-course meal for dinner, and breakfast and lunch is served as well. No alcoholic drinks included. You do have to pay for those in addition, but you will get soft drinks and of course water included as well. But the food's great, all cooked on board, and the produce is often from the local area as well. So you get a nice selection of different foods as you travel. Okay, so that's our 5 sleeper train holidays today. Hopefully you've seen something there that you like. As I mentioned, if you haven't seen something that takes your fancy, then please do pop on to our website for some other options. Just before we go, I do want to mention lastly that I know, of course, for this year, perhaps European travel isn't high on everyone's agenda right now, especially until we get a bit more information from the government. But if you are looking for one of these for next year, then great. If you're looking for something for this year and you're not quite sure what to do, we do have some new UK breaks that we've just released. So Chester, York and Edinburgh, Cambridge, London and Oxford, London, Oxford and Stratford upon Avon, and Bournemouth, Bristol and Bath. All week-long trips starting from £589 per person all the way through to around 900. So all accommodation, all rail travel and all sightseeing is included. And the hotels that we offer are all 4-star accommodation. They're often DoubleTree Hilton hotels. So it's a good standard. As I say, we offer the tours as well. So a university tour in Oxford, a punting tour in Cambridge, a walking tour in Bristol. So if you were thinking about a trip for this year, but you didn't want to travel over to Europe, we do have some UK breaks that you can now find on our website. Just a reminder, I'm sure most of you have found us on the website anyway, but it's www.railbookers.co.uk. So just before I let you go, I'm gonna give your ears a rest for a few minutes. I'm sure you'll be happy to hear, and silence myself. Give you a couple of moments just to ask any questions that you might have, anything that I haven't covered. So please do pop that into the questions box, and I'll try and answer them as best as I can in just a few moments' time. Okay, thanks everybody. We have had a couple of questions come through, so many thanks for that. We've got one here from Dennis, who's asked if the trips are independent travel or if there is a tour guide. Thanks for the question, Dennis. So everything that we offer is independent travel. So you don't have a tour guide with you for the duration of the holiday. However, on the day trips that we offer within the cities themselves, you will often have a tour guide to take you around, but the travel itself is independent. We often say though that you're never really on your own. I mean, we're always there to answer any questions that you might have, and we do of course provide you with a full itinerary to make it as easy as possible. But you have the flexibility, Dennis, I suppose, to do exactly as you please. You don't have to be at a certain meeting point each day, and you don't have to take the trains on a certain day or a certain time. We have the flexibility to build the itineraries exactly around your specifications. So to answer that question, it is independent travel in the main. Robert has asked if there's any alternative on the Orient Express where you don't necessarily have to dress up in the dinner jackets and such. If you are on the Orient Express, you will be asked, you will have to wear believe it or not, a dinner jacket in the evening. It is smart casual by day, so you don't have to wear a suit and a tie or a tuxedo for 2 days straight. But in the evenings, you will need a dinner jacket. Yes. Now, they'll take your luggage actually at London Victoria, and that will be transited through. It'll be waiting for you in your cabin when you reach the Orient Express. The first part of the journey actually is on the British Pullman in the UK. So a lot of your luggage will be taken along for you, but you would have to carry, a tuxedo or a dinner jacket for the rest of your trip. There isn't any way around that. If you did wish to travel to Italy overnight, not on the Orient Express, there is a sleeper train from Munich to Venice. Obviously, it isn't the same as the Orient Express, but there is the option of that train if you didn't wish to take the Orient Express. Another question here from Irene, which is the cost the same for single travelers? Very good question, and one we get, as you can imagine, quite a bit. So the only cost difference is the hotels, Irene. So the trains really there's not too much difference in it, in any, especially the day services. Any of the tours, they're all set fee. Unfortunately, the hotels themselves, not us, the hotels will charge a slightly different price for a single room to a double room. I suppose the easiest way to describe this is if a double room is £200 per night and you have 2 people staying and it's £100 per person, the hotel may charge £150 for the single room. So they won't charge 200, but they won't charge half the price. So there tends to be a single supplement for the hotel rooms. But because we have a broad range of hotels, then what we will always do is we'll try and find the hotels that offer the best rates for single travelers. So, there will be certain hotels that are designed more towards, single travelers, and therefore they'll offer a better rate than others. So we're able to look for the best costs for you, but there is always a slight difference in cost, yes, between people traveling as a group or as a couple, or people traveling as a single, and that's because of the additional costs for the single rooms at the hotel. But we do our best to try and keep those costs down for you, of course. Okay, I have had a question on visas for people traveling from Asia or North America. To be honest, I'll be very honest, we aren't qualified to really give information on visas, especially for people outside of the UK. If you're coming from outside of the UK to travel, you would have to check that with the embassy. I'll be very honest. Wouldn't want to give you any misinformation. That's the last thing I'd like to do. So best to direct you towards the government websites and the embassies there. But that's great. It looks like that was all the questions. I do hope that you enjoyed the presentation. It's been a pleasure talking to you today. Hopefully we'll see you again. And lastly, just want to say I hope you're all well. Hopefully we're looking to better and brighter things going forward, and hopefully we can all get out and travel as soon as possible. So do take care. All the best now, and we'll speak to you soon. Thanks ever so much. Bye-bye.